Welcome to the Real Chili Podcast.
And the Golden Eagles of Marquette University in Milwaukee are bound for the Final Four for only the third time ever.
5 seconds left. Marquette down by one, trying to avoid the upset. Blue the drive, the left hand. It's good. 1 second to play. Vander Blue has put Marquette in front by one.
And I want to win every day as basketball players, as students, and I want to win every day, most importantly, as people.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Real Chili Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Lavender, broadcasting here from a cold, gloomy, and rainy Washington, D.C. on Super Bowl Sunday. You know, since I started watching Marquette basketball avidly in 2005, there have been maybe 6, 7, or 8 guys who have come through the program that have truly stood out during those 12 years. In my opinion, one of those guys is Jerel McNeal. Jerel McNeal, originally from Chicago and a 2009 graduate of Marquette University, leads the program all-time in scoring, in steals, and in games played. And many of you are familiar with this perception of the Marquette program as being tough and gritty and defense-oriented. And I think Jerel and some of his teammates helped set the tone for that perception and the baseline for that perception. Recently, Pete Mohan and I had an opportunity to talk to Jerel, who called us live from Tel Aviv, Israel, where he's playing basketball professionally. We had a terrific conversation. In fact, so good, it went almost an hour and a half. So today, we've got the first part of that conversation for you, which will get you up through the very beginning of the Buzz Williams era and actually talking about that coaching transition. We want to thank Jerel for taking time out of his busy schedule halfway on the other side of the world to take the time to chat with us. We really appreciate it, and we hope all of you, our listeners, enjoy this first part. Without any further ado, here we go. Today on the show, for the first time ever, we have Marquette men's basketball all-time leading scorer, Jerel McNeal. Jerel, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you guys for having me, man. I'm glad to finally be able to get on and spend some time with you guys and talk a little bit. So thanks for having me.
So when you hear that, Jerel, when you hear all-time leading scorer, we all graduated in 2009, so we're getting a little bit older and we're getting some perspective. Does that still hit you the same way? All-time leading scorers, you've been able to kind of look back on your time at Marquette. How does it hit you today?
For me, it's like something that I'll never forget. So it's just something I kind of like carry with me daily, but not necessarily something that I'm always thinking about.
Right.
It always kind of sounds like, I don't know, I always tell people it sounds like a pretty good introduction piece whenever somebody first meeting you or you're getting introduced to something. But beyond that, man, you know, it's just a title. It's a record. One day it'll be somebody else, you know. So, you know, it's still a special thing for me, and you know, it means a lot to me. But more so just the time that I spent at, as you guys can vouch for, our great institution in the great city of Milwaukee. So
absolutely. Well, and we'll get to this, but I know there are a couple young guns coming for that scoring title this year.
Yeah.
You know, the amazing thing to me when I think of is, you know, having watched you play for 4 years and watched those teams with Dominic and Wes and all those guys, is that when I think of your game, the first thing that actually comes to my mind is defense. I think of what you were able to do with, you know, you not only have the scoring title, but you lead Marquette all time with 287 steals, and the defensive attitude that you brought to the game. So I've always thought of you as a defensive first guy with that attitude who also happens to be a tremendous scorer. Is that fair? Or if not, how do you kind of think about your own game?
No, that's completely fair. That's you know, for me, a lot of people say that it's kind of like the other record that I hold with the steals kind of gets pushed to the back a little bit, you know. When you mentioned the points thing, and it's kind of like that's kind of like eye-opening to people. People are like, really? And you know, but like, okay, yeah, I'm the all-time leader in steals too, and that's kind of where, like you said, I take no offense to it at all ever. That's why I earned my bones. That was the one thing when people talk about players nowadays. I tell people this all the time. Like, we're kind of like in an age where players have to be, or they feel like they need to be, or to get to certain levels, they want you to be great at one thing, and like kind of like what something you hang your hat on. And for me, exactly. And for me, that was defense. You know, that was the first thing where I knew like I had a special gift. I was able to do things that a lot of people weren't able to do defensively, and that's kind of like I said, where I earned my bones at first. So it's always been like my calling card. Something I always took great pride in. So. You know, the defensive side of the ball is where championships are won and games are won, in my opinion. So it's a little bit more important than just points. A lot of guys can score.
Piggybacking off of that and kind of rewinding in history, back to your recruiting days, you know, obviously different things appeal to different recruits. You know, what appealed to you about Marquette as you were like a 16, 17, 18-year-old? What things, you know, did you end up appreciating most about Marquette?
I mean, for me, from the first time that I ever got a chance to go up and actually visit, I knew it was a special place. During my whole recruiting process throughout the high school, I was somewhat of a mid to high major level type of recruit. I was a little bit under the microscope. I wasn't like the hugest name, you know what I mean, around.
Right.
And I wasn't the biggest time athlete. I wasn't coming out of high school, I wasn't the best scorer or anything like that. It was just a guy who everybody felt like, okay, he had a chance to be a really good college player. And, you know, so I had a lot of schools, you know, kind of showing interest in everything. But the thing that set it apart for me initially was my relationship with Coach Crean. Mm-hmm. And when he was just going through the whole recruiting process, he was one of the only coaches that I got recruited by that I had like more of a one-on-one personal relationship with. And back then, I'm not sure because, you know, the NCAA and the rules are forever evolving. Sure. So back then they had like rules where it was like a coach could, you know, only call guys during certain times or a certain amount of times during the time period, and they had like dead periods and all of that type of stuff. So this was like when text messaging first kind of became like world renowned as well. Yeah. And like during the times when Coach Crean talked to me, he'd be like, you know, we're going through a dead zone, so I won't be able to check in on you as much. Like one of the smartest things he did, he was just like, but he's like, you know, there's nothing that says that you can't text me or reach out to me as well. So he was like, try to keep me updated if you can. And as I was going through and progressing through the season, I used to text him a lot, call him every now and then, and just let him know how things were going. We would talk about basketball. He would tell me about the program in its current state. And we kind of grew like a somewhat of a special bond. And, you know, the first time that I got a chance to go up to Milwaukee, it was like my dad drove me up. It was an unofficial visit, but, you know, he got me tickets to a game. I was able to come out and watch those guys play.
That's cool.
This is back when they were still in Conference USA.
Mm-hmm. Diener and those guys.
Oh, man. D. Wade was still there.
Nice.
I got a chance to see those guys play, I would say, at least 3 or 4 times the Final Four year. Mm-hmm. And you know, cool. And so it was really special, man. I got a chance to be there when they won the Conference USA title with D. Wade and Rob Jackson, Scott Merritt, Trav, all those guys, Steve and Joe, and those guys were still really young freshmen, you know what I mean? So it's like I got a chance to witness all of that greatness. I got a chance to follow those guys, and you know, look, next thing you know, I had become like a huge, kind of like a Marquette fan, and like, and I was like really like blown away by D. Wade at the time, man. Like after getting a chance to see him live and in person in college, I was like, man, this dude is gonna be a hell of a player. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not sure he was getting as much national recognition as then, because the Conference USA wasn't just a loaded conference. You know, it was really solid and good conference. Still had a real good 6 or 7 teams, I would say, at the top of the conference. And, you know, so I got a chance to see that. I'm just like, this dude is going to get to the NCAA tournament and make a lot of noise. And next thing you know, Yeah, next thing you know, the legend was born. But yeah, I got a chance to do all of that. And man, ever since I got a chance to get on campus, at this point in time, they were just breaking ground on the Al McGuire Center. It was essentially just like a parking lot.
Yeah.
I got a chance to go by there before it was like completely done with construction. And he's telling me, like, you know, if you did end up coming here, you know, this would be like your one-stop shop. And, you know, I followed through with everything and got a chance to experience it all, man. Best decision I've ever made.
So from the outside looking in, like with that recruiting class coming in, I specifically remember obviously being a freshman at that same time, and there were T-shirts that said on the back, it said "Da Kids," and it was U3, and I think it was Dwight Burke as well. You know, you mentioned Dwayne Wade and Coach Crean and kind of all those factors. When you're making your final decision and kind of going through that first summer when you're building, you know, getting to meet these guys. What was the dynamics between you, Wes, and Dominique? Did you guys know each other, and kind of how did that all play into each other into your freshman year?
You know what? Again, I would have to give a lot of credit to Coach Crean. I don't know how exactly he did it, or we were just maybe that naive and young, but he kind of like orchestrated it all behind the scenes. I want to say after I committed to Marquette, I can't remember exactly who committed first. I think it might have been either me or Dominique, but we committed right around the same time to come to Marquette, and we actually both committed to go to Marquette before ever even taking an official visit.
And did you see any of those guys like on the AAU circuit before you got to Marquette? Did you have familiarity with them?
You know what? And it was crazy. So like me and Dominique, we committed, and then we ended up at a couple of the same AAU tournaments, and me and him started to build a relationship. You know, we exchanged phone numbers, kept in contact. Back then, we used to have to search high and low to try to find like what other guys in different states were doing on the internet and stuff. So it just wasn't as easy to obtain information about like, you know, high school level sports and stuff like that. So it's you know, the game has changed a lot. But me and him
Twitter and everything.
Oh, exactly. You just like it's constantly. I know what everybody's doing. I know my high school team, whether they win or not, up to the minute every day now. So, but yeah, me and Dominique. We really started to connect a close bond after we knew that, you know, we both were going to be playing together. We got a chance to watch each other play on different, like pretty much like a court over from each other at the AAU National Championship, which was really cool. I got a chance to see him play, and I was just like, you know, wow. You know, I got a chance to see him play, and I'm like, wow, this dude is like really, really talented, unbelievable athlete, man. To this day, still, I think pound for pound, one of the most athletic guys I've ever seen in person. Mm-hmm. And he was just a great player in high school, man. He was such a good dude, like, and easy to talk to off of the course. I was excited about joining him. Then we found out that Wes was going to be coming, and you know, I hadn't been able to reach out and have the same type of relationship with Wes, even though we talked here and there. But he was like the Wisconsin guy, and was like, you know, legendary in the state of Wisconsin already. So, and you know, he was Mr. Basketball and
Mr.
You know,
Soccer
kind of,
too.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. He's from soccer, and it was so funny though, because I used to mess with him all the time, just like when we first got there, man, just about him and being a big time soccer player and stuff like that. I'm just like, man, you like to use your feet, or can you play basketball? And he just used to always get mad at me, but no, he was a great guy as well, man. By the time we all ended up at school, man, we pushed each other, man. It was like I said, the best 4 years of my life, and I think it shaped all the guys in the program, and especially us three early on. Like, it kind of shaped us to be the type of people and set us up for life going forward, success going forward for our futures, because we were all guards. We were all big. We were all fast. We were all physical. We all came from different places. We all had our own different personalities, but we knew that we had 4 years set out together to try to do something special and try to do some special things. So we just constantly, pushed each other, man. We competed against each other harder probably than we competed against anybody else, and that just created a bond for us that'll never be broken.
Kind of a unique situation right now with the current squad in that this last recruiting class, Ike Akay and Jamal Cain and Greg Elliott all played for the same AAU team in Detroit. I mean, that's a pretty unique thing, but do you think that gives us a special advantage, having those guys play together for so long?
Familiarity is always good. It's great that those guys knew each other and had played together before. But, the biggest thing is just, especially for those guys right now, because they're young. So it's just not only them playing together, but each of them individually continuing to grow, and improve each and every day. Like every day, like the first year of your college experience is pivotal. Not to say that it's the end all be all, but just going through that first season, trying to adjust to being the best player. Usually all the guys are the best players in their area, state, in the country in some situations, you know what I mean? So going from that and pretty much going to college as a freshman, now you got some of the top guys and best players in the world are 21, 22-year-old guys, like on the cusp of being grown men as well. So, it's a process for the game to kind of like the speed of the game is faster. Guys are more physical. Guys are stronger. Everybody was the best player at their high school. You know what I mean? It's a little bit of an adjustment. So I think each and every day, is going to be pivotal for those guys. Just not only because they know each other, but they have to continue to improve individually and know where they can make their marks on the college level. Mm-hmm. And then once they all get into the point where they're becoming steady rotation players and dependable guys that you can count, that are going to be there night in and night out, that's where you'll see their relationships and the fact that they've played together and they're familiar with each other start to come in more.
Your freshman year, not only did you have Wes and Dominique and you're trying to mesh and vibe with guys like Steve Novak and Joe Chapman and Dan Fitzgerald, but it's also the first year in the Big East Conference, right, for Marquette. I want you to take me back to that first game in the Big East Conference that year. For some of our listeners who are maybe a bit younger, Marquette wasn't always in the Big East, and the Big East used to look a little bit different and maybe a little bit stronger. The first game Marquette ever played in the Big East Conference was against UConn, who's fallen off a little bit, but it was in Milwaukee at the Bradley Center. And UConn, I don't remember if they were the top-ranked team in the country, but I think they were number 1, right?
They were number 3, if I remember correctly. I think they had dropped the game or something like a week or two earlier. But they were number 1 because, it was crazy because UConn and Villanova, I want to say that year, were top 5 teams in the country all year. So, they were both, number 1 for a point in time, and they never really dropped below, number 4 or 5, I don't think, the whole year.
So take us back to that game against Connecticut, and that's obviously a game where Steve Novak got his. But for a game like that, to be able to have it be Marquette's first game in the Big East, what were some of the things that you saw in that game, contributions that you were able to make, or kind of how that game came together?
I'm glad you mentioned that because I kind of got to backtrack a little bit. This is one of the big reasons also, one of the selling points for me going to Marquette as well. This was really important to me. I knew already that they were going into the Big East Conference. Mm-hmm. I knew what the conference was going to look like. I spent a lot of time watching Big East basketball growing up. I felt like that was always one of the toughest and more strong conferences to play in. Like if you could play in that conference, you could play anywhere. Mm-hmm. Taking those a few of those top teams out of the Conference USA and creating what they were calling it back then was a super conference. Mm-hmm. It was unbelievable, man. In the conference, it was 16 teams. It was an absolute beast. You had no easy nights. Oh man, it was crazy. So I really wanted. That was a big part of why I wanted to go there. I always had the ability to try to wanted to test myself against the best competition, and I knew that playing in this new Big East Conference was going to give me an opportunity to do that. okay, I just need to backtrack for a moment. Now moving forward to the UConn game.
And that gave me the time to actually see that UConn finished that year ranked 2 in the AP poll, and Villanova finished the year ranked number 3 in the AP poll. So backing up what you said.
That was Rudy Gay and those guys, so I mean.
Oh man, it was crazy. I'm not sure exactly to this day how this happened or how it got scheduled, but we did our whole non-conference season. We knew that we had UConn first game of the year and that they were going to be top 3 team in the country all year. They essentially were saying like this team had 6 guys who legitimately would be professional players, even one coming off of the bench, so we kind of like knew this was going to be like our opportunity our welcome into the Big East, and everybody was probably expecting us to get trashed on national television. But I still don't know how the scheduling conflict happened. Or who went wrong with this, but no disrespect to the university, but we played Lewis University the game before UConn.
They're not even D1, I don't think.
No, exactly. They're a good team. It was something normal for like your non-conference season a little bit, but
right.
I was so nervous because I was just trying to figure out. I'm like, it's going to be so difficult to go from playing a team that's like, like I said, not a bad school, good division, I think 2 school, a lot of good players. But
that's like going from like AAU to the majors, right?
Like exactly. We were going from playing like a smaller college team to us, and we weren't a very big college team to begin with, to playing like the Monstars, So and like a span of like a 3 or 4 day gap. So I still don't know how that happened, but I was really nervous about it. I was just like, man, this is going to be completely different. And obviously, this was our welcome into the Big East. It was our inaugural game. Oh, my God, man, it was an electric environment, man, an absolute packed house. This was like, I will legitimately say my first time, but not nearly the last, when I seen the Bradley Center just completely lit up. And I knew, I was like, okay, this is a different version of Marquette basketball. Like, this is prime time. This is going to be fun. And, just coming into that game, I remember Marcus Williams had the laptop incident.
And the fans knew about that.
Yeah, everybody knew about that. And so, obviously, the fans played to that. There was a lot of laptops, a lot of chants and pictures and stuff, cutouts and stuff that was there. But I remember Jim Calhoun. I think they didn't start him for the game. Like, that was part of his punishment, that he wasn't going to be in the starting lineup. So I just remember us getting underway, man, and just like being so nervous. And I'm like, I wanted to play so well, but I was a freshman. I knew that I was going to have to kind of like rely on my teammates. And coming out of the gate, man, Steve Novak, man, who was our senior at the time, still one of my closest friends, man, a guy that I always keep in contact with. But he was like our security blanket for that team.
Yeah.
You had 3 young guards out there who weren't so familiar with the college level, but we were kind of like thrown in the fire. We knew that if things were going to go well, that we were all going to have to play significant minutes and step up and try to help him lead the team. He was absolutely, lights out. It was a little bit of a rugged game early on, a lot of mistakes. Everybody was moving too fast. It was jitters, I felt like, throughout the whole team. And then, you see Steve bang a couple crazy shots, and I'm like, oh boy, because obviously playing with Steve and being around him for as long as I have, on not just the college level, but even just professionally, I know when he gets it going and he starts getting those feet turned in toward the basket and he got that stroke going, that it was going to be a good night for him if we could continue to get him open looks. And that really just, it opened up the game for everybody because they, like, Steve was like our 4-man essentially. And we did a lot of pick and pops and ran them off a lot of screens and stuff like that as well. And it was really hard for UConn, who was more of a traditional Big East team. These guys had Josh Boone and Hilton Armstrong, who go like 6'10", 6'11" in their front court. You know what I mean?
Right.
You had these guys out here trying to chase Novak all the way out to the 3-point line to try to run him off a catch and shoot three. And, obviously, Steve can shoot the ball a step inside a half court. So, it really opened up the game for us, man. We got going. We started getting in the game defensively. And really, man, the crowd, man, that carried us, man. After he got it going, I played okay early on, but I was making a lot of mistakes and couldn't really get anything to fall. And by the second half, I started realizing that they were so attached to Steve that, somebody else was going to have to try to do something to open the game up because, they were spread out. And now he was pulling one of the bigs away from the rim. So I started just picking and choosing my spots, trying to go in there and attack the rim when I could and get some easy baskets. And, man, it was a historic night. But, Steve ended up with 40. I had my first double-double, I think, of my college career with 19 and however many rebounds. And, I looked up the next day and Steve was all over Sports Center and I had no mention at all. It was like I wasn't even there. But, yeah, I always mess around. Steve always messed around with me to this day about that. He was like, man, this dude, you had a double-double as a freshman in our inaugural game in the Big East against UConn. And, yeah, but you have 40 points, so that's the story behind the story that nobody ever mentions or ever remembers. So, but a special night, man, in Marquette basketball, man. I think that was a turning point for our program, and I was just happy to be there and be a part of it.
So I totally agree, at least in terms of turning point for the program. I remember the energy because I think your freshman year in particular, that game, I remember the Notre Dame game that year against Steve Novak. I mean, it really seemed to rejuvenate the program. And that year, so your freshman year was 2005, 2006, and y'all lost in the first round of the Big East tournament. And then I'm trying to think back and remember exactly how this happened, but you ended up losing to an Alabama team 90-85 that year in the NCAA tournament. So definitely a rejuvenating year, but probably left a bit of a sour taste in your mouth as you started to look forward to your sophomore year. Do you remember, kind of what was the feeling after that game? Because y'all had shown tremendous promise throughout the season, and you were coming together.
Yep, we were in California. We went out to play Alabama, and I think it was a really good region. It was some good games out there because we actually ended up having to stick around and watch a game after that. It was definitely disappointing. Like you said, it was a really promising freshman year for us, but we were so young, and inexperienced, man. So it was just like each and every portion of the season, each and every game, we were kind of just like getting more and more experiences. But you can't teach experience, So the game versus Alabama was something we had to go through. It was no longer conference play. Like we lose when we pick ourselves back up. It was the NCAA tournament, the biggest stage in college basketball. One shining moment, and that was kind of our first taste of that, and we were happy to be there. But at the same time, we felt like with the combination that we had, it was a special group because we had not a lot of middle ground. We had the young guys, 4 or 5 guys coming in a freshman class who were a really huge part of the team. And then you had the seniors and the older guys with Steve was, like I said, the best player on the team. You still had Joe Chapman, who was one of our veteran players and a huge part of our team and the locker room and our personal relationships. Chris Graham was a big part of our team. Then he was a senior, the Reaper. And then you had my man, we kind of had Fitz and Ooze in between there. Like we knew we were going to have some more time with those guys, and they were also huge parts of the team. But for the most part, the team was young and kind of like old. So it was a situation where it was like we wanted to carry that on as long as possible for the older guys because we knew it was kind of like their last round. We were hoping we could just get everything clicking at the right time and just had the right type of chemistry where we'd be able to make a run. But, the Alabama game was crazy. We were all kind of in shell shock early on. We played terrible the first half, and those guys got off to a really big lead. And by the time we kind of like settled down, got back to the locker room, and we were down a lot, we kind of just like looked around at each other, you know, especially the young guys, and was just like, man, it's basketball. It's a game just like any other time we play it. Just the stakes are bigger, and, you know, we can't let this moment pass us up, man. We made like a roaring comeback in the second half, man, and got it all the way back to where Steve had a wide open three in the corner to keep us playing or win the game. I can't remember whether we were down 2 or 3, or whether it was to win or to tie. But it was, you know, we made a roaring comeback, and it was really disappointing. But that was the experience that we needed, especially as young guys moving forward and going on and having to deal and do this for the next 3 years, not only this year. So we all took our lumps there. We realized that it was going to take a lot more work and us to do a lot more improving for us to try to continue to have sustained success, you know, and try to make a run somewhere down the line. So
now, moving on to your sophomore year, that started out pretty well. I'm sure you guys were excited about beating Duke to win the non-conference tournament. Tough loss to Wisconsin also that year. I think the team made some progress, but again, that was a year that you had an injury as well, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
What was it like dealing with that?
Going back to our sophomore year, our second year was it was a big year for us. We were all kind of like chomping at the bit because we were excited to get back to playing, and you know, the dynamic of the team had completely changed with all our older guys being gone, Steve being gone. So the onus is really on us now at that point in time. All the three or four freshmen that we had, me, Dominique, West, and Dwight, we were sophomores now, and it was time for us to, you know, it was like kind of like our team along with Ooze and Fitz. We were really excited. We got off to a really big start. We won the college basketball experience, man, and that was a really awesome event. Just all together, man. We got a chance to go to the basketball ceremony with all the legendary guys, man. You're meeting so many guys that you see on TV and you read about. Like, for me, I'm a big history buff, especially when it comes to sport, especially basketball, and just a chance to be in the room with some of these same people and see those guys honored at the banquet and everything that they had, and then turn around and we had like a kind of like a dinner, and like everybody was pumping up the matchup because we had to play Texas Tech in the first game where Coach Bobby Knight was there,
right?
and him and Coach K were both in the tournament on opposite sides. So, you know, Coach used that as motivation. Like, they think it's gonna be kind of like a reunion, all reunion championship, Bobby Knight versus Coach K, but you know, we had other plans, so so we took that on, man. We had a lot of fun with it, man. The Texas Tech game, I still tell people those two games were two of the most fun games I've played. I played in my career at Marquette, and it wasn't just because of the tournament or who we were playing. It was just like a combination of everything. But I felt like we were so motivated. We had all improved so much, and we had all got so much better at playing together and playing to our strengths, man. It was fun. We used to always preach for our team. We knew for us to have success that we would have to play really, really fast. We would have to play really tough and hard defense and try to pressure guys all up and down the floor and create turnovers. And we knew we were gonna have to move the ball well, and play off each other. And I felt like that Texas Tech game was a culmination of all of that, man. I felt like we were flying up and down the court to this day. When I watched that game, I still get a special feeling about it. I was just like, man, that's just like when you play basketball, especially as a guard, that's the way you want to play. You want to be flying up and down the court, getting steals, pressuring guys on defense, throwing alley-oops, getting out in transition, you know, and playing in front of a great environments against two really good teams and two legendary coaches, man. What more could you ask for?
On to the junior year, this was the last year with Coach Crean. Obviously, you know, we knew that he went on to Indiana after the end of the season, but you guys didn't have any sense that there was anything like that going on your junior year, right? I mean, you guys were just playing ball and
yeah, it was the junior year was really big for us, man. And we, like you said, it was a great year. At this point in time, man, the staple of our team and Marquette basketball had arrived. People knew that we were in the Big East and we were there to stay and compete for championships at that point. So, we had another year of experience of playing together, and everybody was kind of like clicking on all cylinders for the most part the whole year. So, with the whole Coach Crean thing, nobody ever had like literally any idea about it.
Where were you when you first heard? Because I mean, my story, I was studying abroad. I was at Marquette, but I was studying abroad, and I got a text at like 3 a.m. and I was like, "Holy shit, this is news!" But where your story is probably a bit more interesting than mine.
It's interesting, but it's pretty typical for me. But I think that it's hilarious. Like obviously we lost our junior year. Oh God,
that was the Stanford game.
Yeah, Stanford game.
Oh my God, still have that Brooke Lopez shot in my head.
Yep, and I'll never forget that as well. Heartbreaking. We knew that we were supposed to be in the Sweet 16 this year, but like I said earlier, one shining moment happens, and it happened to us that night. So we were in our early off season, man, and just going about our everyday lives, kind of like. After everything winds down with the NCAA tournament, it's difficult for us guys, especially at a school like Marquette, where academics are pretty pressing and important. Mm-hmm. Guys kind of refocus and get back into the swing of just going to class every single day and being there consistently and making sure that you're doing all the stuff that you need to do and getting caught up on anything that you need to get caught up on. I was doing what I love to do a lot. I was at Humphrey, back at the dorm, back at the room, and I was sleeping. I was taking a nap. And one of my infamous midday naps, I did a lot of those in college. This is kind of like how we operated, just for the record. Like in Humphrey, we all like stayed right above and below each other in all the corner rooms of the building. Mm-hmm. So we pretty much, you just knew who was on what floor. Like such and such was on the first floor. I was on like the fourth floor. My roommate was Dwight Burke. So me and my guy D Burke were on the fourth floor. And guys, we had like a stairwell right there. Like when you walk out of your room in the corner room, there's a staircase that just goes all the way up and down the building. And you come out of the staircase and you at the next corner room. So we that's kind of like the way we travel, unless you live like at the top floor, you know what I mean? So then you might have to take the elevator, but we would just run up and down the stairway and run in other guys' rooms or whatever, and like nobody ever kept their doors locked, so all the doors are always open. And I just remember being in there half asleep, and Nick and Wes actually came in, ran in on me doing my nap, and they scared the hell out of me, man. I was like,
were they like screaming when they ran in, or what was they? Were they excited, or is it like holy shit?
Yes, Wes and Nick ran in, and they're like, "Real, wake up, Coach leaving," and I was like, man, I'm like out of it, like literally, like what, like y'all just scared the hell out of me. So what is going on? Like somebody dead? What happened? And like Coach leaving. I'm like, man, get the hell out of here! Like what are y'all talking about? It's like, I swear to God, it's on ESPN. Like that's obviously everybody's TV is always on ESPN.
Yeah,
and I think it was like I remember going down there. After this point, I had woken up and I was like, my equilibrium was a little off, so I had to sit there for a second, like, man, hold on, I might fall down if I get up too fast. I was like, all right, let me get up, and I ran back down to Neek and West's room, and we sat there, and I think it was Pardon the Interruption was on it. Yeah. You know how they do like the little little thing at the end of the show. Yeah, at the end of the show, they do like the little sidebars or corrections.
The happy trails and stuff.
Too. Yep, all of that stuff. Yep, and the guy threw it in there at the end of the show was just like, and it's just in like breaking news. The word is Marquette Coach Tom Crean has come to agreement to be the new head coach at Indiana basketball. And I want to say I believe this was like on April Fools. So we were kind of skeptical about the whole thing, and like literally right after that went off and they said it on TV, we got our group text message. That's the way we all used to communicate whenever they wanted to tell us something as a team. Everybody had their numbers in their group chat, and they would send messages. And I think it came from Coach Rabidou, Jason Rabidou, rest in peace. He texted everybody and was like, the vans are coming over to get you guys at Humphrey in like 30 minutes. And it's going to be 2 vans. Everybody be downstairs at, such and such time. And that's kind of like when it's set in.
And so they bring you into the Al McGuire Center and Coach Crean talks to you and explains what happens, or what's the after you all kind of get in the same room, what happens?
We didn't go to the Al McGuire Center. We went to Coach's house.
Oh wow!
And that's I thought we were going to the gym initially. Then I seen the buses heading for the highway, and I'm like, oh shit, we're going to Coach's house. I was like, yeah, this is it. Like this is legit. It's happening. So we get there, and it's just pretty much all the guys on the team, the whole coaching staff, coach and all of his family, just sitting around. And to be honest with you, it was an emotional day for me. Mm-hmm. I didn't really understand it at the time. At the same time, though, this is somebody who I had been through a lot with. I've been knowing for a long time. A big part of the reason why I was at Marquette University, and we were coming back in to we were going to be seniors next year, so it was like, man, we had a great year this year. We were a staple in the Big East. We're going to be one of the top teams in the country next year for sure. So I just didn't understand the timing of it. I'm like, why would he do this now?
Right.
But obviously it was, like I said, a lot of emotion going on at the time, and I was a lot younger. I really didn't understand the business side of everything with basketball and athletics. When you get caught in such a close-knit group in a family-like environment, you kind of lose yourself in that. You're not thinking about going on. Like when we were in school, we weren't thinking about, not to say at all, but all the time, what are we going to do after? What about money? What about this? You just kind of like caught in your lifestyle. You're going to school, right. And, your teammates are like your brothers, man. Your coaching staff are kind of like your parental figures. They're always around, always looming. But, you at the same time, you have a sense of independence where you guys are kind of doing your own thing as well, and you're adults. You're away from home. Your real parents aren't always going to be there to hold your hand. So we got caught up with emotion. It was an emotional time, man. It was a lot of crying. I'll tell y'all that much. Okay, so it was a lot of tears from a lot of different places. But it was an emotional time. But at the end of the day, I think the biggest thing, Coach was really he was really upset and disappointed because he wanted to get the opportunity to talk to us before anything got released.
Right. Yeah.
And he told me that on multiple occasions. So he apologized, but you know how things work with guys, with the rumors swirling, especially when it's like a major coaching change and stuff like that. So there was a leak. It was a leak somewhere, and we ended up having to find out on through media as everybody else first. So he was really apologetic about that. He never wanted it to be that way, and and I believed him. A lot of people I know kind of like hated him or felt a certain way toward him after that. But going back, I know how rumors and everything gets swirled, and especially in this day and age, like we see it all the time now. Like it's just so common now. Back then, it was just like he should have talked to the team first, and we got it. But it was an emotional time, but it was a crazy time though, man, because after that was really the weirdest time.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for part one of our conversation with Jerel McNeal. In part two, you'll hear why it was such a weird time between Coach Crean and Coach Williams, how Jerel would guard Marcus Howard and Andrew Rousey if he absolutely had to, and then we finish with a rapid-fire series of questions in which Jerel gives us his best heat check game of all time. All that and much more on our next episode. Thanks so much for tuning into this one. Signing off for Pete Mohan and all the fellows who put work into the pod. I'm your host, Mike Lavender. We'll talk to you next time, and hang in there.